Hello world. I am streaming. I am streaming today. It's always great to have Zerve viewers. Good morning, good morning. Welcome in. I'm working on the Zerve app. I'm continuing to work on the Zerve app. I'm going to turn that sound off for now. Oops. I'm going to intentionally turn the sound off. And going to be focusing on the user interface today. Focus, focus, focus. It's basically the only word I say. And I still struggle with it every day. So I'm going to jump into it. But before I do, quickly, I just want to plug my YouTube channel. Because if you're watching this, maybe you'll enjoy the content on YouTube a little bit better. And also feel free to tweet at me. And that's about it. Jumping into the Zerve app, and hopefully you already have some context on it. This is just the mobile app running. Don't have anything running on the front end. Here, let's see if I can get some. I'll just turn the music on low. So this is the React Native app that we're running. Let's look at it in the code base. It is Zoo Mobile, and mostly it refers to logic that's elsewhere, specifically inside of Zerve/Zoo. So yeah, basically this is a lot of reusable logic. Zoo can be used in other applications as well. It's literally a package. Here I'm setting up navigation, Dripsy, and the Zerve query ability. And navigation is where the good stuff is, right? Oops, no, not the navigation provider. Oh, this is itself the whole provider that's being used. And Root Navigator has all the screens. And these are all the different screens in the application right now, split up over 2 navigators. So there's maybe 3 navigators. There's a settings navigator, a home navigator, and a root navigator that handles all of them. So settings, for example, has horizontal navigation inside of it. But it itself is inside of this broader navigator. And for example, if you tap something like this is just an empty manifest because this should be coming from Expo, or it will be in when the application is actually deployed. It's that screen, and here's the settings navigator, and if we dismiss that, here's the home navigator, and this has its own little navigations inside of it. So this is like the history of things that have happened inside of the app. Pretty ugly. So I did say this is front-end focused today, but web, actually. I'm trying to get a lot of this user interface capability functioning on web. And I did, at one point, throw myself into the deep end of it. So first I need to start up the server so that there's a backend for us to talk to. Forgot which server we want to start with or use today. Which server among our various server options should we use? I'll just use the demo server because that kind of is going to demonstrate. I don't even need to say anything else. The demo server is the best for demos. So you're in workspace, demo server, dev. And I just happen to have that memorized, but there's the dev script in the demo server app. So the demo server is running at 3899. And the mobile app, it seems, has connected, but this query is still failing. The mobile app should have the ability to refresh here. And I'm so embarrassed every time I have to refresh using React Native itself. And actually, this should have auto-requeried when it connected back to the server. Okay, what if this spot where it says connection info, we can implement a refresh? It's been a while since we've just done something on the native app. So this is a good chance to just get something done. So we're on the home screen, I think. Yeah. So we'll just add a new option here that says refresh, and then we'll figure out how to implement it. So these are actions on our little action sheet. The key needs to be distinct. The icon doesn't need to be distinct, but I think it's called reload, the icon for this. Oh, and it looks like I missed a curly brace. Oh no, what am I doing? Oh, I see what I've done. How's that? Okay, so now when I do the drop down, there's refresh. Okay, reload. Let's call, maybe the icon is called refresh as well. Okay, that's the right icon. Now we need to actually make it so that it does the refresh, which can be a bit tricky because this connection section doesn't actually have the query. The query is handled inside of Znode loaded node. So I think there's a callback here. What's the callback? Inside of Znode loaded node? No, we need a callback. So this isn't the most pretty pattern, what I'm doing here, but because this is where the refetch is available. You can see it's even pulled out of React Query, but it's not being used. Oh, you can't see that. So yeah, the refetch is here inside of Znode loaded node. So we need to kind of expose the refetch. So like I'm going to do something that I'm not proud of. I'm kind of disgusted that I'm going to do a use effect. Which, oops, just use effect from React. Which is usually like a smell that some bad stuff is happening in your code. I don't know why auto import didn't help me there. There's probably too many TypeScript errors. So what I'll do, use effect is a callback, something that you do when the dependencies change. The dependencies here are what? What if the dependency here is the actual refetch function? Because I think React Query is responsible for giving us a stable function identity here. And what we'll do is we'll say on actions, hello to my one viewer who just stopped in. I'm in the middle of adding an effect to my component, which is really gross, and it's a bad sign if there's an effect being added here. But we need to pass this refetch capability out to our container because someone might want to refetch us, but we don't have that capability until it's here. In theory, we could do this using refs, but I actually find this less gross on actions. So don't worry, the code is going to get better after this, viewer. You came at an embarrassing time. And also let me know how the music is, if you want it louder or a different lo-fi station. So the actions here are a callback, and it's going to return with a list of action definitions, I think, or maybe just, yeah, I'm trying to get past this code because it's terrible. What are they called? Action definitions? Out here, we are using them here. They're the arguments, they're called action button def. Okay. Which is a little, yeah, no, this is okay. And again, auto import, wouldn't it be nice if that were actually auto importing? Okay, so now we're going to basically call back with like a list of the different actions that we have available to us. I'm going to copy this refetch action. And Great. It's just so shameful the way this this has to be done this way. So now on press, we're going to call refetch. So that was our whole motivation for doing this. On actions, expected 0 arguments, but got 1. Right. Because I screwed up this thing, so... Well, actually, yeah, it returns undefined. Okay, so action button def needs to be imported. Maybe it's not actually properly exported from the right spot. No, it is exported, and it's inside of Zen. So there's no reason why action button def shouldn't be auto-importable here. Okay, but whatever. I'm just going to pretend that's not a problem. Let's see what errors we get in the app. Undefined. Oh, literally it can't find use effect. That's funny. It's pointing at use effect saying it cannot find use effect. That's a little silly. Let's just try react.useEffect. That way you can't possibly be confused. It's the same problem. Oh, on actions is not defined, of course. Yeah, well, first of all, it's an optional thing, so it might not actually be here. I think this is the way that you can say, hey, only call it if it's there. Okay, now what? Oh, wait. Okay, so let's actually make it so that we're using this properly, because now on actions should exist. So again, this is like hooks that I don't really feel like I should have to write. Oh, look. Previous Eric has already been in this mess. Is set actions called twice? No, set actions was just literally there waiting for us. I'm trying to read this type error now. Hang on. Void is not assignable to undefined. Okay, I don't know. I mean, I do know probably. Well, it's probably the definition of this prop itself, where this just needs to specify that it returns void. Even though it does return undefined. But whatever. Okay, that fixed it. I don't want to get into the difference between void and undefined in TypeScript because, I don't even know enough to complain about it. There's a weird distinction there. So yeah, we needed to get some functionality done, and now we have this refresh button working. So what it's doing is it's spreading in the actions from the state, and that's how our child component is giving us a different set of actions that are going to be used. One way actually this could be done better is by making it so that the parent has the ability to kind of ask the child for what the actions are, and that we only actually do that when the action sheet is actually being presented. But due to the API here of use action sheet, actually, yeah, no, because it's a callback, it could actually be done right here if we had the ability to ask our child, and potentially all of our children, what are your different actions that you have available. And this is a pattern that is kind of all over this app, is the ability to kind of have these little ... actions. Because, for example, inside of a store, we're looking at a file, and here's the ... actions of the file. And each of these fields, actually, you can tap on, and these are the actions of the field itself. So if we take a look at the schema of this file, we see it's an object. It's basically not typed very well at all. So this file could basically contain anything. And this is literal JSON, so we can specify, oh, it's an array, and the array has 2 booleans in it, true and false. Okay, so now we're setting up some JSON data. And yeah, this is some of the capability in the mobile app that we want to bring to desktop. But yeah, there's these little ... menus here. And for example, if I want to rename from anything to something, it's nice to come in here and make sure this code still works. And it does. So these little things, it's a common pattern. And what we're doing here at this level is we're kind of doing the same thing where we're asking the child, like, what are your different capabilities that you have? Because you're an array, you should have different features available to you than if you're a string. But in this case, I think all of these are the same because we don't have this really sorted out properly. Anyways, so save that value. Oh, it's interesting that when I saved the value, the order of the keys got messed up, which makes sense because like I need to actually work in order to make sure that the order of objects are retained and are actually significant. Because often in JavaScript and TypeScript, of course, the order is not significant. But in this application, it is significant. We want to make it so that keys are always appearing in the same deterministic order. And that's how it is literally in JSON. Because in JSON, when you're enumerating an object, like there is an actual order that's encoded into the JSON data, whether or not you use that order or not. Just like an array. Which is maybe a controversial opinion, maybe not. Okay, so we added a feature. Let's try and commit this feature. I don't know why it says there's 25 files that have been changed. This is too many files for this little feature that we changed. Because I think I tried to make a commit earlier for my server cleanup. But like the commit's not committed. It's not looking very committed. So now I'm going to have to commit these other changes alongside. Okay, yeah, this was a change from before. This is cleanup. Yeah, it's a little weird. Oh, here, I'll just commit this change that we just made now, because that's much simpler. It's just... That's the only change I had to make in that file? That's so funny. Okay. Home screen and the changes inside of Znode, right? So now stage changes. Now refetch action on home screen. And now we can commit all this other junk and say server cleanup. Progress. I don't know. This is just stuff from yesterday. It's really whatever yesterday Eric had done on stream. This didn't get any other code done yesterday. Okay, so let's push these changes to the repo in case anyone actually cares. Unlikely, but it's possible. So the demo server is basically exposing a totally unsecured store, but it's a functional, useful thing. The demo server could expose less, or could expose something simpler. Let's see what it looks like when we try to consume it from the web side of things. So 3899 is our host, and this is going to be relevant because I think it's hard-coded. It'd be interesting if there's a way to kind of automatically spin up an API and spin up a front end that uses that refers to that server locally, but don't think so. So Yarn Workspace. Now we're trying to start up the next app, which is Zoo Web Dev. So this is the modern version of the Next app that has Dripsy pre-installed. So we should be able to start using Dripsy instead of our half-baked UI components that currently constitute the Zen component. So no idea what's going on here, but I bet I'll know where to look. It's referencing Page's app. Something about Raft polyfill. Weird. I'll try running yarn just to make sure everything's kind of warmed up in the repo. Still get the same issue. And it is like a full error, right? Like it's not like the server is just happily running over here. Yeah, it's a real problem. I don't even know what this is about because, like I said, this came from the starter repo. But maybe that's what's like interesting about it, is it came from the, like it was working. What gives? This was totally working before. I might have to just go into previous versions of the code base to see when this broke. But also just for fun, I'm going to comment out this line that they're complaining about that I have no idea about what it's here for. And I'll do a full restart of Next. It's not complaining. What about now when I load? It's taking a long time to load. Is that a good sign? No, it's probably not a good sign. Compiling ... Usually like an error appears by now, like to a great degree. Okay, now it's complaining about request animation frame. Because somehow it's like importing all of React Native reanimated. That's what RAF stands for, doesn't it? Your boy's learning. We needed this polyfill because it's the request animation frame polyfill. Let me look at this because previously I've had to just like create like a one-line polyfill for request animation frame in React Native apps and just hung my head in shame. Isn't that funny? Okay, so how is the RAF polyfill like somehow not being found? I'm going to search the codebase for references to just RAF because this should be an npm package, right? Let me just double check like on unpackage. RAF. Yeah, it is literally just RAF, and then if I go to /polyfill, what's here? Okay, well, it's there. It looks like it's a working thing. So, but the fact that my code base doesn't refer to RAF anywhere is kind of a problem. Let's see if the yarn has references to it. No, it doesn't. Dude, I don't understand how this used to work, but maybe, like, let me just try something. Try the logical thing. Add RAF. Oh, you probably can't see that, but I'm just in my terminal. It's not lovely how the terminal cuts off the bottom of the screen. I'm literally just going to try to add RAF to the web workspace as the dependency. I mean, I think that this would be the fix. I just don't understand how it used to work, because like I had run this project a bunch of times before. But okay, it's like even though there's an error, it's still spinning. A request animation error. Like I wonder if this is the old error, because we should have the polyfill now, right? Oh, this is good. This is good. Look, the title is here. Okay, yeah, this is the quote unquote working app. It's lovely, isn't it? Yeah, it's lovely. Um, oops, I didn't mean to close that. I just meant to give up on the dev tools. So here we can see that the demo server has /store. So like if we go here, I don't know, /store, like we want it to load our store. And if we go to inside of the store, like into file, we want this and this to be the same thing. So the first thing is the hard-coded server is the wrong hard-coded server. The first thing wrong is the thing that we already knew was wrong. 3888, because this is the hard-coded server, I bet. Oh man, it's so gross how many times in this code base I'm referencing this file, or this port number. It's a lot. So this is a demo thing. We're going to ignore the hell out of that. That's very... we need to replace that code. So here's the server and the standalone server, where in both places it's used as the backup port. Page layout. So this is the main one at fault. And it's tricky because in dev mode we need to talk to a different host, but in prod, this web app is probably deployed on the same host as the Zerve Z API, which is the other, it's the other server, the API server. So this is the problem here, is we're hard-coding this. Now what I would sometimes do if this was just a client-side thing, I would specify, oh, if you're in prod mode, take a look at your host, because you can, as the client, you can look at what host you're currently on. And then you can use that to construct your URL. But in this case, we're only in dev mode. Whatever, just for the sake of right now and like having fun on the user interface, because that's what we promised ourselves today, is some front end shenanigans. I'm just gonna hit save and move over to our other server. Hopefully, right? Did I move over to our other server? What happens now if I go, for example, to the root? I'll refresh and we'll see maybe what happens on the network tab. Maybe. XHR requests. Well, I'm not seeing the XHR requests, so let's jump into the mobile app, or into the web app. So either the index page, or when you go to a certain path, we just capture the whole path with this ... Next.js feature, routing feature, where we basically capture every path using the index and the ... path terms. And in both cases, we're rendering a path page, and we pass in the path as an array. So we know that we're getting into the path page. And from here, we're rendering... Oh, well, I was about to like demo how we're rendering the loaded node, which is a component that you might recognize. This loaded node is also on the mobile app, but it was commented out, so I'm going to comment it back in and refresh. Okay, good. And now we're in the world of hurt. So this is what I meant when I said I was being really ambitious by taking a large chunk of the mobile app and just trying to run it in web, because it should work in theory, but we're a little ways away from that. Okay, here's some ugly use effect code that we wrote 20 minutes ago that I'm already trying to hide. So everything inside of Znode, by the way, this file that we're in, is generic across different platforms, or it should be. There are a bunch of specifics though. So JSON schema editor is where most of our user interface is being consumed. This is like a really powerful form component that takes in a JSON schema. And this is the main thing that needs to be ported over, because I think a lot of these other things in this in Znode are portable. They rely on other features of Zoo, and they of course rely on all sorts of Z features, and they rely on the user interface, but all that should be working on web and mobile. So this is generally happening because, like, let's just try turning off features from JSON schema form, because this file is really gross. Not only is this file like probably 1,200 lines long, no, about 1,000 lines. It doesn't have very good type safety because it's doing kind of stuff with JSON schema, and really there's no good excuse for me not to have good type safety in here. But here, for example, like, yeah, this what I could be doing is like using TypeScript to build up better type safety, so that even though there will be parts of this that do have type problems or type sort of vulnerabilities, like most of this file should make sense and it should not be redlined. Oh, it looks like I've been even experimenting with animations over here. So yeah, this file is a gross one. I'm going to delete this because this is just old junk. The problems here is when we're referring to stuff from Zen native. So drop down and use action sheet. These are the problematic ones. So what maybe I'll do, I'm thinking Zen should probably import from Zen native in the case, like I separated these because there are all these issues when you're importing from React Native-y things on web. So let me just try aggressively commenting things out and breaking this file. You know, everything's under version control. But I need to go find users of use action sheet, which is our main sort of action sheet. So open actions is defined this way, and instead I'll comment this out and define open actions. Oh, let's just delete this. Okay, whatever, no big deal. We're going to be totally breaking things. Okay, who else's use action sheet? On choose type. Okay, that's fair. We're going to have to come back and fix all of these later, but just for the sake of even getting this stuff to run on web, I think it'll be really cool to see what works and what doesn't. Okay, so those are the use action sheet. Now who's using dropdown? There's, looks like 2 or 3 instances of it. And these might be easier. I can probably just comment out this whole component. Okay. I'll just comment out this whole thing. And yeah, last one here. Okay, maybe, I don't know, maybe it'll load now. We'll get closer to loading. So we're probably making some reference that's continuing to refer to Zen native. That's my hunch, but I can't be sure about it actually. So that's always fun. So let's just pop out one layer because this file can be a little overwhelming. And try removing Json schema form from Znode and seeing what happens instead. So I'll comment this out. It's sad to have to break so much really great functionality here, but it'll be back. So there's probably 3 or 4 references in this file to JSON schema form. We just want to get Znode working first. Okay, we use it all over this file because JSON schema form is really powerful, but this is also like crazy how this component won't wind up doing anything, but it will allow us to kind of switch based on what's happening on the server side. Okay, these are all commented out. Now maybe we can get our page to load. Let's see. So no, we're still having troubles somewhere inside of Znode. And just to double check the obvious, I'm not importing anything crazy here. I'm importing so much junk. Useful junk. It's so funny that, like, previously I thought I had narrowed it down to JSON schema editor, and now I have no confidence at all. Well, toast, for example, do you think this relies on some weird stuff? Show toast. And just to like sanity check everything, right? Oh, in fact, we've already been here on this level of sanity checking. We know that the page does load when there's no zloaded node. So something inside of zloaded node is the problem, and that's defined here. Here? Oh, there's so many different types of Z nodes here. Okay, so I'll tell you what, for the sake of code organization and for my own brain, my poor fragile brain, I'm going to break this Z node into like a bunch of different things. That feels like the right thing to do. Starting with the one thing that we're actually trying to import, zloaded node. Okay, so I'm going to copy all of this file into zloaded node. And then I'm just going to delete everything except for zloaded node and the imports. And then it's probably going to want to refer to some things here, like error box. I've really like grown to rely on TypeScript auto import, where like control space opens up this little dialog where it lets me auto import. But I think that's just been broken across my whole code base recently, and I can't explain why, and it's really bringing me down. TypeScript giveth and she taketh away. Okay, these don't look like necessary imports. But these two things should be auto-importable. Please don't make me type out the import TypeScript. Okay, maybe I'll try quitting VS Code and opening up VS Code again. Because when you quit VS Code, it also quits TypeScript, I think. And I want to give TypeScript a chance to help me here. So here we are on zloaded node. And like error box, command space. Am I screwing up this import? Or the shortcut for it? Is there a different like keyboard shortcut that will allow me to... I can't be doing like a code organization without auto import working. I don't mean to sound like super prissy and spoiled. But yeah, I've come to expect certain things out of my dev environment here. I think control space, like the keyboard shortcut, is probably botched. Oh, what if I come up, like, what's the word for the command for like opening the open autocomplete dialog? Oh wait, somebody else has a not working reference. Control space or by typing a character such as the dot character? No. No, sir. It's that I don't want it to complete, I want it to auto import. VS Code, auto import, shortcut. If you're watching this, you're probably like, why is he looking this up? Why is he wasting his time on this? Searching commands via F1. It's trigger suggest. Okay. We're making progress. Keyboard shortcuts. Open the keyboard shortcuts. So now I need to find trigger suggest. Oh, yeah. Here it is. It's set to control space, but if that's not going to work, I'll happily have anything else. Like, does shift space work? Can I change this? Shift space. I don't think I'm using anything else for shift space. No suggestions. Damn it. Okay, what about Znode? Do you have suggestions for Znode? Oh, you do. Oh, so auto import is here. Literally, it was the keyboard shortcut that I had broken. I'm sorry if you have to watch me through that. It's because I installed Alfred the other day, which tries to also take control space. Okay, so now shift space gets me there. And then I just need to go and probably export error box from Znode. Yeah, I mean, error box is not even a function that should be in this file, but we've got to walk before we can run. Shift space. Okay. We're back in business. Now it's going to be so much faster. I'm glad I did that despite streaming and wanting to beeline on this thing. The productivity hacks are very important. And auto import has been a game changer for me. Now that TypeScript knows what different variables and things are where all over the code base and what's exported, I can go and just auto import like a madman. So zloaded node now is no longer available here, right inside of Znode. Can we delete it? Let's delete it, and then we'll make sure to import it properly from the places where it's being imported. Wow, it's being used all over the place, isn't it? So what I can do is I can just delete the reference and go back down to where it's being used. Hello, where it's being used, and do shift space enter, and it gets it from the new spot from zloaded node. Then I just kind of need to repeat that for the rest of these. Delete that, come down to the place where it's being used, shift enter. And this was the one I think I've been working on. Z path page. So this will be a little tedious because we need to do this with a bunch of different modules inside of Znode. But it should be good. Wait a second. Z inline node. Okay, wait, so Znode has a bunch of recursive dependencies, doesn't it? Oh crap. I thought I was being so productive by breaking this into several files, but now if they're recursive dependencies, like they actually need to be in the same file in order to work. Oh my gosh. This is such a brain buster here. Does that mean all this needs to be in the same file, like into perpetuity? Because the way these things work, where it's basically reading arbitrary stuff from the API, and one of those things could be a reference to another thing where it might need to load it in line. Let's just take a look at exactly where it's being used in all these places. It's inside of Z container node, which is used directly by Znode. So I can either think about like re-architecting the way this works, or I can undo what I just did and put put the loaded node back in here and keep everything in this one enormous file because I actually don't know anything better to do. So that's kind of fun. And it does kind of logically follow that, like, hey, I've got this container, and the container can include a reference to something, and that reference can include another container, or it can include anything else. And when we have this reference, we want this reference to like kind of auto-load itself in the user interface. We don't want there to be some sort of like extra button or external user interface for just following a reference. So this is the kind of pain that kind of comes out of no-code, low-code development. I'm just going to type in my chat. And as a result, we haven't even gotten into the user interface goods. We've just been struggling to even run our stuff on the web. So, how typical. At least we've gotten something done. We added that feature to the mobile app earlier on. It only took us 10 minutes. So yeah, like we can't have these recursive dependencies. It just straight up won't work. Like, does that mean it all needs to be in the same file? Like, that hasn't caused me any troubles except for the fact that the file is really confusing. So like, if that's the only reason, like, I should just get better at managing the file and understanding what's happening inside of it. Yeah, and also we could use dependency injection, which, like, I barely know what it is. Like, I know what it is. Dependency injection is kind of manually doing what is happening inside of this one file. But it means there needs to be some wonky sort of import pattern. And hey, because this is a React app, like one straightforward way of doing dependency injection is passing in the component as a prop. So at some point, there's going to be a component that is rendering a child component that is passing a reference to itself, like the component function, as a prop. So that way the child has the ability to call it. Okay, maybe that's what Z inline node is. Like, this is the point at which the dependency wraps back around. it's because it's only like inside of references really that you're going to be having to render a Z inline node. This is like for a reference that when you're like logged in, basically, that we're giving you the user interface of somebody who's logged in. So this is effectively a reference. So yeah, that could be the way to do it, is make it so the top level component passes a reference to itself down as a prop. I think that's probably kind of poor man's dependency injection in a React application. And, I'm not really excited about that prospect, but also I don't like the idea of having everything in one file. So, like, this isn't really how I wanted to spend my time today, but that's so typical of software engineering, isn't it? And how I wanted to spend my time today was on user interface stuff, which is not even how I wanted to spend my time. I was like, okay, I'll do the user interface nitty gritty components. But I can't even get to that if we can't even run them. So Z loaded node. Let's do it. Let's just try it so that like we'll just give it a shot. We'll see what it's like. When we pass into Z node, like what is this called? Recursive node? A auto loading node? Node loader. And you give it literally Z loaded node, which is so confusing because we are inside of the implementation of Z loaded node. Okay. And yeah, like imagine thinking about the types of this and like the generic types that would be applied to Z loaded node. Like it's no wonder I struggle with type safety in this application, especially in these parts of the application where it's like doing these really wild recursive things. I couldn't possibly begin to understand the type of Z loaded node, for example. Node loader is what the prop is called. And we're going to have to pass this like all over the place. It's going to be hilarious. It's a React function component. It's a, what was it? I always forget the types for React components because that's always like changing throughout the years. All right, we'll just do the most shameful thing. We're already doing a bunch of shameful any's all over the place here, so. Okay, so now whenever this whole file refers to Z loaded node, it now needs to refer to node loader. Because here this reference probably won't work, or at some point this recursive reference is going to fail and one of these imports are going to be like undefined at runtime. Right? Or does ES modules prevent this whole thing from being a problem? Okay, just in case, because like, I don't know, shit. Like, maybe there's no actual problem here because we're in ES module land, and maybe this is just an issue with recursive dependencies in require.js, or I mean common.js. I don't know. Okay, so Z inline node is the one that's used all over the place. And Z inline node literally just is referring to Z loaded node. Like totally directly even. So okay, so this should be a recursive dependency because we're depending on Z loaded node, and Z loaded node depends on Z node. Right? So if I just keep on clicking these, like, who gets evaluated first? I don't know. But let's just try it because I don't know. Maybe it's not actually a problem. But anyone who's referring to Z loaded node does need to refer to it from the right place because it doesn't even exist inside of the previous file. Okay, that looks kind of correct. Okay, so that's warning us about a require cycle. It can result in uninitialized values. Well, I mean, that sounds like it would be really bad if that were to happen. Uninitialized values, that's bad news, right? Oh, okay. Is this a problem that only existed due to our recent change? Cannot find variable on choose type. I think this is because we were aggressively turning things off. Yeah. So maybe we don't actually have any issues here. Network request failed? Maybe it's because the server is off. Is the server off? I don't know. Also, there's two servers that we're connected to here, so maybe it's the new server that's causing trouble. I'll just delete it. So now we only have our demo server that we're connected to. So really, if I refresh, it gives me the warning, but that's it. I don't think we've actually properly demonstrated the bug. So maybe we can by going into our demo server and changing beyond the store. We can have like a reference to something, right? I'm pretty sure I've implemented references, haven't I? So for example, you can have state, which is like create. It's a gettable, and maybe it's a Boolean. Can we get a Boolean schema? Okay, so the Boolean schema we've imported, and now we are just literally like implementing a function here. It's like it can be an async function. And now we come over here and refresh. State is here, and it's just it should give us a Boolean. Why isn't it showing us raw type, raw value? So the raw value is here. This is a user interface issue here. It should be showing us the Boolean. If we look at the raw type, it even knows that it's a gettable Boolean. So this is definitively a client-side bug. Like what if we try something that's not even a Boolean, like a string schema? And if we refresh, oh, why is our server having troubles now? We've really gone down the rabbit hole now. String schema is not defined. Well, I tried to auto import it, but you know, that doesn't always go according to plan. There we go. Now the server is happy. And we'll come here and refresh. Look at the state. And same issue where the value is here. If we go ... look at the raw value. This is what we expected. So I am in the habit of going and fixing issues like this when they come up. When there's something that I expected to work that's not working, it's usually a very simple thing that needs to get fixed. And it's also inside the same code, probably. In fact, maybe we've commented. Did we just break it? I think we have broke. Yes, we've turned this feature off because we turned off all of the JSON schema editors inside of the Znode. This is a functioning Znode. Just it should be showing the actual JSON schema editor or the JSON schema form. Because on web, we're even just trying to get past that, where we're even seeing Znode. So let's get back to the web. And again, it's struggling with imports, which is really frustrating because I just need to kind of, like, it doesn't give me a useful stack trace here. Okay, this is a useful stack trace. But what it's saying here is that I'm importing the bottom sheet, basically. So what I'll do, just for shits and giggles, like as an experiment, I have a file called bottom sheet. And here I'm just going to throw new error, cannot use bottom sheet. And hopefully this error will get caught before the other error, because I wanted to see the stack trace for who's importing the bottom sheet. Because it's explaining that, oh, it's the bottom sheet library, but the bottom sheet library is, I think, only used from 1 or 2 files of mine. It's either bottom sheet. Wait, why does string input use bottom sheet directly? Whoa, wait a second. Hang on, I gotta comment this out. Oh man. Bottom sheet input. You're not even, you are used. Okay, whatever, who cares? Comment out all the things. Maybe? No. Someone else is still importing you. And also I want to see who's using string input. I think I know a lot of you are. Yeah, Json schema form uses string input. So this is how the code goes, especially on the front end, because you've got all this like shared functionality that you want copied all over the place. And that's what I've been doing on the mobile app. It's been great. Now when I want to come over to the web app, there's all these problematic pieces that are scattered everywhere in the code. But yeah, we're pretty confident that the issue is that the bottom sheet is being imported on web. So that could only be coming through string input or bottom sheet. If it's coming in through bottom sheet, who's importing bottom sheet? Yeah, basically this is being exported from Zen native. So any references that I see to Zen native should be a concern to me. Oh, huh. Here's a place where it was being imported, but it actually was not being used, or it's also being used here. Whatever. I don't know how I was like in this file, like looking for this problem, and I did not. I didn't catch it at all. But yeah, the strategy here is to basically go and break things aggressively. Oh, look at this. This is exciting. It's always exciting when when I break things aggressively. But no, this is exciting because this is a new error. What it means is we got past this bottom sheet dependency issue. The sad part is it means like the mobile app is like in shambles right now, is totally destroyed. But it's okay. We can bring it back in bits and pieces. Like string input, for example, we probably want to have a platform fork for. And I think platform forks work not for web, but for React Native. So if you want to have something that's like only going to be consumed on React Native, basically like it can be done, I think. You rename your file to .native.tsx. Okay, so we got past the bottom sheet dependency issue, and now we're on to navigation troubles. And this is directly inside of Znode. So yeah, we need to think about this. Like, what exactly do we want to do? Because Znode, needs to be able to do certain navigation. And we need to kind of replace a lot of these links with different linking strategies. Some sort of different linking strategy that will be platform agnostic. So use navigation is used like 7 times in this file, 5 times in this file or whatever. It's a lot. And then what are we doing with the navigation? Navigation.navigate, probably a navigation.push. Yeah, so that's what this dispatch is. We're dispatching a push action. Here we're doing a navigate to a history event. Lots of .navigates. Navigate to the chain history. Navigate to the chain schemas. Now the thing is none of these none of these are theoretically platform specific. But like on web, for example, like what is chain history and chain schemas and all of these screens? They don't even really exist right now. On React Native, the navigation state is really deep and complex because here, when you tap on one of these things, you're telling the navigation system, hey, that my path is an array that includes store, and also part of my navigation state is which server am I in. And we're pushing a specific screen. We're pushing the Znode screen. And here, when you tap past the Znode screen, you're tapping on a child, you're actually going to the same screen. So that's why we're doing this push action, because we're saying push another screen, even though it's another node screen, and the connection is the same. The connection is the reference to which server you're on. But the path is going to be deeper. So the path is going to be an array that has store and file. And that's the navigation state we're on right now. But on web, at least for now, what we have is like the Z API fully defines the path. So store/file. But you can't specify other things, like specify, oh, I want to see some specific screen on this file. Now we could use query params for that, right? So we could say, if you want to see the history, and the history doesn't even quite make sense in a web client, because usually you're not keeping track of like the history locally, but you could go to ? History, and then that would be available on different paths. So all of these navigate actions are tricky questions. But they are also like abstract. They're already defined as kind of standalone functionalities. Navigate is like something that you can conceptually do on web, so we can just implement some code that implements it. It's of course not going to be respecting the connection, but yeah, this is what I meant by when you tap on something like push, it takes the path and it extends the path with the thing that you're going on to. And here's the connection, which is just a string that identifies what server you're talking to for this screen. So yeah, we're doing weird stuff here. And for now, what I'll do is I will make it so that we have our own custom use navigation inside of this app. Because I'm trying to take an incremental approach. Like I don't really have the willpower to like go and replace all the navigation code right now. But we will need to get stuff working on web. And the way we can do that is we can basically like start by having a simple shim that doesn't do anything on web, but then we'll start incrementally adding navigation features into this use navigation. So use navigation comes from React Navigation Core, it looks like. Let's see where we're importing it from. No, from native. React Navigation native. Okay, so basically, for most of the time, we're just going to pass through whatever's going on here. Yeah. What I should do is I should specify that that the type also needs to be passed through. The other thing is, like, TypeScript theoretically has the ability to say that arguments here is the argument, the proper. There's a way to extract from this what the arguments are, right? Like parameter types. I think maybe just parameters of the type of use navigation. Am I crazy? Args is referenced directly or indirectly in its own type definition. I'm going to say indirectly. What do you mean? I'm just saying that the arguments are the same thing that use navigation gets from React Navigation. Okay, whatever, TypeScript, I'm sorry. Sorry, dude. So now I'm going to duplicate this file and call this useNavigation.native. So this is what's going to be consumed on the React Native side of things. Oh gosh, I need to fix these types. Now, on web, we're going to return a bunch of stubs for navigate and for dispatch, because those are the two things that we know we use. And here we can have some like console.error basically says like okay, navigate is not really a thing here, but here there's arguments. Okay, not really a thing here. What about dispatch? Is dispatch a thing? Not really on web. Not right now. Sorry. Okay. TypeScript doesn't think my types are... Do you think I need a comma here? Okay. All right. Well, that's fair. And then we're not going to import here. Well, an implicit any type is exactly what I meant. So, okay. Now Znode here. Here, like, we're importing a few things from React Navigation, but use navigation is the only dangerous thing. So we're going to import use navigation from our own spot. And this should be a different thing on web versus native. Whoa! Man, I've been waiting like weeks just to see this. And yeah, I mean, you've been watching, you probably recognize that this is the same list of things that's right here. And the kind of delightful surprise is that it looks right. Like, the icon and the row user interface is aesthetic, even on web. And if we click it, it's not going to work for shit because we've just broken that stuff. Right? Although, you know, honestly, I was expecting it to come up with like a log statement saying why it couldn't click. What about on mobile? Right, on mobile, it still is able to do that navigate. But I think it must be using this code. It's a navigate action and a dispatch, right? Those are the two different things that need to be available on our on our stub. Console.error. Why don't we see the console.error? Also, perhaps this should be memoized so we're always returning the same thing. So I'm just gonna, it doesn't really matter because this is a stub. In fact, let's just lean into the fact that it's a stub. Don't even use memo, we just define it out here. Nav stub. But why doesn't .navigate work when we click on the thing? So let's take a walk down memory code lane. So inside of Znode, we're going to be inside of Z container node. So we should be calling dispatch with push when you tap on the thing. I'll just put debugger here. It's our favorite thing to do when we're here on the web browser. We can stop our code in the tracks. Okay, is the console like just not showing the good stuff? Info only, default. Okay, info only. So like this whole time, there have been maybe like useful or horrible looking things going on in the console that I haven't seen. Dispatch not implemented here, and here's the push action. Okay, so it is doing what we expect. We're not that unhinged. We're just that unhinged. Okay. Well, I know what to do actually, because I'm smart. We can go here to state. If we click on it, what we should basically do is we should go state to /state. So what's over here? Well, it's not rendering the state. You know what that reminds me of? That reminds me of the native app. So hey, feature parity. It's equally broken on web and native. But maybe we can turn this on. Maybe this is actually something that will work. I don't know. Only one way to find out. I'm kind of enjoying how the circular dependency doesn't seem to be an issue. I'm just going to pretend that's not a thing. If you were here at that point in the stream, we can all collectively agree to ignore all of that stress about creating circular dependencies that may or may not bite me in the butt later on. So Znode, we saw what it looks like on a container. That was the Z container node, because it has this behavior where we're rendering a list of links that they're not super ugly actually. It's a functioning link row group with the icon and the title rendering properly on web and native. So Z state node. I think this is the good stuff. This is where we should be seeing, it's like, oh wait, no, a Z state node is different from a Z gettable. Yep, this is why they pay me the big bucks. So I'm going to turn off this null and say, let's just try rendering JSON schema form. Okay, let's try importing JSON schema form. Rendering and importing on both web. Oh, yes. Yes. Oh, yes. This is the state. This is the thing that was promised. It works. We fixed it. This is the thing that our server is giving us. The server is giving us a healthy dose of string. Hello, string. Okay. Oh, you know, I would feel really happy with myself, even if we just got that simple little navigation to work, where if I click on one of these things, it jumps to it. Like, it's weird, because now I need to go and write a bunch of special case code, which is like, oh, if you're pushing this Z node, then I know exactly what to do. Otherwise, like, what's going on? It's like React navigation, which I I will not. I'm not trying to publicly affiliate myself with, but React Navigation has this generic API for navigation, and it's type safe, so it's good, but it just does not play nice with Next. I think I might just kind of go down this road where I'm shimming use navigation on web, so that on React Native, the developers are like totally oblivious to the fact that like Next has weird routing. Like on React Native, you're like, wait, why are we only kind of using one screen? It's like, because we've gone to extreme lengths to make it so that that screen has complete parity with web, but only on this one screen. And like your other React Native screens, like just don't show up automatically on the web app. So because it's going to be pretty straightforward, I mean, like it's just a matter of calling next router dot push, I think. I'm going to do that. I'm going to write that shitty little navigation code. I'll be ashamed, but not ashamed to do it. Use navigation. And you can see I'm just shimming use navigation itself. So this is the web implementation. So dispatch. It's being dispatched what? A action. And the action has payload and type. So if the type isn't equal to push, we're not ready. We're going to just say, well, let's just say that if the type is push, we're going to have a special case where we're able to handle it. Otherwise, we're just going to fall back to our current complaining about how we can't deal. So if payload.name is Znode, then we actually know how to handle this action. Probably. We won't handle the connection, but we will handle the path. And that's just literally called payload.params.path. And we can join the path with some slashes, and then here we'll just return, so that way we're in a special code branch here. Console.log will go to, and this is just a sanity check before we do the last step. Clear the console. Make this a little bigger for everyone. Okay, tap on the state, and it says will go to state. Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, so now we need to do, okay, we're deep in it right now. Because we're trying to use router over here. Use router from, Solido router? I thought it was from Next. Use, I think it's like const, but now I need to go look at the Solido docs to see if I'm doing this right. But I'm also sidestepping a lot of Solido. I'm taking advantage of the configuration work that's been done that kind of makes it so that all this code can live together. So I'll use router from next router though. I'm gonna import it from next router, and we'll see what happens. So we're returning navstub, but we need access to that. So now we are actually going to do use memo. Return use memo. Hello, come on, use memo from React. Have you heard of it? Literally React. Have you heard of it? come on TypeScript, import use memo from motherfucking React. Okay. So use memo is a callback, of course, and we're going to return this navigation object, and the dependencies to the callback are just literally this push action. And there's no nav stub anymore because we are straight up implementing some navigation stuff. Not navigate itself, but literally dispatch, so that you can dispatch the push action to Znode. And in this case, now we have push. So literally, we're going to use a template string because you need to have a trailing or starting this slash. I don't know about this. Whatever. Here, just for the sake of clarity, I'll put this in a separate variable. Const path equals blah, blah, blah. I always, like, path is one of those variables that's really likely to be shadowed on the outside and the inside. So I'm always, like, nervous when I see path because it's like when I use that variable name. Okay, we'll go. Okay. So it worked, but it also kind of looked slow and crappy. I think because it wasn't an actual link, and we could have made that an actual link. So I think that's the the Solido way of doing things, is by like rendering an actual link. Because even though that totally worked, it felt like a very janky navigation, like super janky. Like I clicked on it and it just it takes a second, and there's no reason for it to take that time because it's not depending on any external server. It's just talking to servers locally, so like there's no excuse for it to be that slow. But now it feels fast. That's a nextism for you, where it's like, okay, navigations feel slow and then they feel really fast once you've warmed it up. Oh, cool, dude. It's so cool to see all this stuff from the mobile app just like kind of showing up on web. And let's just like see what breaks. Navigate not implemented here. Okay, so it's trying to go to a file. And that's interesting because like, yeah, going to a file, you're trying to navigate to a file screen. So why is a file screen conceptually different from a node screen? Now that's, I would call that philosophical questions, but it's really like a question of like how I decide to implement this architecture. But hey, this is pretty exciting progress. Only took me an hour and a half to get some. It only took me an hour and a half on like the 10th time I've tried to work on this project. Gene is nerd. What? Brace? Hello? Hello, welcome to chat, but I cannot understand what you're saying. If you're calling me a nerd, then you're spot on. Yes, hi, thanks for being here. Yeah, isn't that what I just said? Oh, okay, yeah. I don't know if I missed it. Missed a different chat. But I'm making progress here on getting this like mobile app functioning on web. I'm just here in like a world of hurt, like trying to get the navigation paradigms to kind of line up. I've kind of got it working for a single screen. And it's a screen that gets reused. So this screen that you're seeing here is technically the same as this screen on the code basis. It's just loading different data and deciding to render different things based on the data. And the mobile app is doing the same thing. So that here on this screen, or here, let's open it up. Here, this is the equivalent. It's looking at the exact same set of things. And yeah, on the server side, we can come in and change what's available. So here we're specifying, oh, there's like a string that's available, and this is how you fetch the string. And there's also the whole store. But forget about the demo server. Let's like shut down the demo server and maybe switch into a more interesting server. Or what do I want to try to do? Because like this navigation is super janky the way it works here, where I tap on something like state. Well, it's really fast now because the client side is loaded and warmed everything up. But the very first load, I tap on it, and it takes like a good second to get here. And this link does not feel great. It does not really feel like a link. It should, while I'm hovering over, it should give me the URL in the corner of the browser, specifying where you're going. This isn't an actual link, and that can be fixed. And that's why I'm using Solido, at least in principle here. So that's why there's link, text link, moti link. Moti link is like an animated one. But I think just link should be useful. So you just specify an href. It supports the props from next linked component aside from past href. And children. So this is very bad because it's using pressable. Right, so it doesn't want you to create your own pressables. It wants to be the pressable. Aha, and then there's Dripsy isms. Whoa, this is nice. Has anyone ever seen this before, where the TypeScript types are all being rendered on... I'm gonna have to look at how he does this. This is so sick, getting the actual TypeScript definitions here in the documentation. Oh man, that's such a funny thing for me to get excited about, but it's also like freaking cool. It makes the docs just feel alive and so much more trustable. I want that so bad. I want to copy this. He's clearly using Docusaurus, so I mean, it's got to be doable. See, the custom link guide. So I am a little curious how this works on React Native. Like, where does it refer to the actual screen? Maybe I need to think about how this works. Do I even understand Solido? Do I need to go watch his talk? Just because I've been able to kind of integrate it into my repo doesn't mean it's working. So let me just try to use that. So Znode is this component that renders all of these different things. But if it detects that it's a container, which is what we have on the root, this is a container, it's going to render a link row group. And this link row group is this visual box with all these links. So instead of rendering this link row group, what if we took all of the children and rendered moti links? Right? So we should be able to take over the child names, map over them, and now, I don't know, like a link? This link, can I import this from Solido? Yeah. I call them moti. I get the names of these libraries mixed up all the time. But Solido is the navigation-focused thing, and moti is the animation, but I just need a normal link. It has the same API where I use the href. Like, I'm happy to use the href, and it makes perfect sense on web, but where do I associate that with the actual screen? Is it just that React Navigation has screen URLs and that I need to make them all line up? Because that could be it. So the href, I'm like not even worrying about if this is going to make any sense on React Native. Let's just see if we can get this to work on web. The href is going to be it's going to be slash, and then it's going to be this joined. So I'm going to go do a template string, starts with a slash, and then take these and do join with more slashes. And that should be the href for our children. And for now, we'll just use a paragraph inside of the link, because I don't really know what to put inside of the link. Okay, so these are Moti links, or sorry, Solido links. Oh, wow. I'm like horribly shocked that they work. And not only do they work, like they feel so much better. No, actually maybe they feel the exact same. I can't tell if this feels better than the links that are down here that don't work in the same way. Okay, maybe they feel the exact same. So yeah, I might not actually use the Solido links because they're not providing much value. And also, by the way, there's no way in hell these work on React Native. Yeah, fails to pass the path. Fails to pass the Yeah. So this path that we're using on web, it just logically does not make any sense inside of React Native, because your path on React Native needs to contain more information, like what server you're even connected to, for example. That's part of the path inside of React Native. There's like additional context that's relevant inside of a React Native app path that's not relevant on the web app, because like on the web server, you're basically only talking to the same server. Right? I mean, I could readdress it so that like in the same way that the React Native app talks to several servers, the web app can talk to several servers. I'll think about that. But at this point, I think it just makes more sense to invest in this little use navigation shim on web, even though like I can't say I'm incredibly proud of the way the code works. Like I'm trying to be product focused here and get a really nice or usable product out the door ASAP. And I can't spend my time like trying to switch to a linking system that I don't understand, like these Solido links. And the reason I don't understand it is because I don't quite understand how to make it so that the URLs are different on React Native, or logically different. And on the React Native side, like the URLs are kind of less important. You still need to be able to handle a URL. For example, if you're deep linking from a website and you get into the native app, you want to jump to the right spot in the native app. And the way that's done is through a URL that you're being opened on. But yeah, because like I'm not trying to be focusing on this part of the application. I'm trying to focus on getting the JSON editor to be fully functional on web. I'm going to shut down this little experiment with Solido links, and I'm going to double down on the use navigation shim. So for example, if I tap into store, I need to find an alternative on web for what happens when you click on file. So like in theory, couldn't it be store/file? what happens if I try that? So yeah, this is where I'm kind of coming up with design issues in the application. And what's happening here is that the file abstraction, like the concept of what a file is built on top of the Z API. So that this URL actually is not truly a Z URL. And yeah, I'm trying to think of like how much of a problem that actually is, and sort of what strategy to take to address it. But after making all of this progress today on breaking down some of the barriers and getting stuff working on the web app, I'm going to take a little bit of a break. But I do hope to continue streaming for many more hours. So thanks for jumping in chat, Brace, and anyone else who's here. Ooh, I'm at 3 viewers. This is a peak viewership. It's a bad time for me to take a break with my peak viewership. But I'll be back within 5 minutes. And in the meantime, enjoy this nice Japanese lo-fi, DMCA free. Okay, see you soon. Okay. Gonna get back at it. Only 2 viewers left. Feel free to say hi in chat. Definitely been having fun though. Brace, brace. What brings you in? Are you interested in seeing some coding? You're interested in the Zerve project? What can I tell you about? Ask me anything. Cool. Yeah, for backend engineers, Zerve is probably fun for because it kind of lets you automatically create a front end just by defining what's happening on the back end. And I can show you a little bit about what that looks like. Here, let's get the camera on here. Maybe you saw earlier here, I'm in this demo server, and it's using all of this weird API, this like Z API. But as a result of using this Z API, everything that I do here is exposed to the front end. And let's get it working on web in addition to mobile. So let's have an action. Like, what I want to do is I want to turn off the lights, but I have the Hue Lights, and there's some URL that is tricky for me to find, but I can find the URL that will turn off the lights in my room. But in any case, let's just have an action called turn off the lights. It won't actually work, but maybe one day I'll make a fun demo. So create Z action. So we need to import create Z action if it's not already imported. I don't know why TypeScript is so slow at this, but okay. So we tell it the schema of what the client will send, what we will send back, and then we provide the implementation. So here it says it's an any schema, but it's not any. It's JSON schema. So here, literally, we'll provide the schema for what the client can send. Then we'll provide what we send back. So for now, we'll say we'll turn null schema. And instead of turn off lights, we'll say set lights, because that will be more interesting. And then here we provide the async implementation. So oh yeah, Ionic. That Ionic is good, but that's fun. I'm glad that someone else is interested in what I'm up to. But this is just, I'm just kind of sharing for fun. Yeah, React Native. There's going to be a bunch of React Native people in chat, or the few followers I have were probably from a React Native stream that I did a while ago. I see. Cool. Here's your friend. But yeah, I used to do sort of React Native focused streaming, but I'm really interested in building on the full stack, making full stack development as easy as possible. So of course there is a React Native app, but there also needs to be a web app, and there's a big ol' server-side component as well. But here I'm demoing how you can create a little, you can create a schema for the action that you're defining server-side. And of course that's the power of React Native, is being able to share all of the code, but it's also such a nightmare. I mean, I'm kind of envious of people who just like focus on shipping web apps, because they probably get stuff out the door a little bit more effectively than I do. So that's certainly a challenge. The surface area is so big for one developer to be doing React Native, and also like doing a full React Native app as well as the full stack web tech. But absolutely. Like, I'm pretty much invested in React native ecosystem and React ecosystem, because React Native is like the one technology that lets you have portable front end between web and mobile, and it hasn't really been achieved properly yet. So hopefully I can make some progress on achieving that. When you say everything that is headless is hard to do for a single developer, I'm curious what you mean by headless, because yeah, like that's a term that sometimes confuses me. Sometimes people will say, "Oh, are you working on a headless CMS?" I'm like, "No, it's a CMS, but it has a head too." And also, I kind of only call it a content management system for the purpose of marketing, because ultimately it's kind of more of a flexible, low code, but also yes code thing. So if a CMS has a head, it's not headless, but it's decoupled. So yes, I'm a decapitated content management system, I think is the word you're looking for. The front end gets rendered by the CMS. So yeah, I think that it's possible to have like a CMS that also has a front end. And with regards to Ionic, Ionic has always felt like one of the most accessible things for web developers. Honestly, though, when I'm using an Ionic application on my phone, I can kind of tell. There's certain constraints with web views that are just really predictable, and like I think that there are Ionic has made a lot of improvements as far as capturing the important parts of native functionalities for a lot of apps. So I do think Ionic is a good choice for a lot of apps, but I am trying to build something that's super generic that can like access the native stuff when necessary as like a first-class citizen, but still is meant for the web dev universe. Basically, there's no like real reason why React Native is better than Ionic at the end of the day. Like people will make arguments about performance and feeling more native, but I think you should just do what works. And like I'm familiar with React Native, and I love how it gives me access to like the full stack. Basically, give me access to native engineers' output without having to be a native engineer myself. So that's kind of how I stand on that. But let me go back to Kevin's comment on the CMS. The CMS is decoupled, but the CMS does not necessarily contain the React root, so it'll initialize the front end and then get handed off to Vue or React or whatever. Interesting. So basically you're saying that like, kind of the question is like, what is the outside of the application? And there's two applications, right? And we're mostly talking about the application that the user is seeing, not the in-house, back-of-house application, right? Because like, that's kind of what people mean, I think, when they say headless CMS. Like, it still can have a front end and be a headless CMS, just only your internal people are utilizing it. And that's the kind of use case that I hope Zerve can fit into pretty quickly, where you kind of give like Zerve to your non-technical team as your sort of dashboard and say, these are all the variables that you can edit for your application. But that's just kind of the very minimum viable product that I'm thinking about. And in that sense, like it's a content management system and a headless CMS, but also you can use arbitrary amounts of the code because it's properly open source. It's like Apache 2 licensed. It's liberal open source. You can use it as a library in your application and take big old chunks of the code of the content editor and reuse it in your application. So like one cool feature that I want to do soon, I even want to do this for the Zerve homepage. Like at the bottom of the Zerve homepage, I want to sort of collect email addresses so that I can gently spam people and like give the content updates basically. And I want to say like, oh, do you want to take content as a or do you want updates monthly? Do you want updates weekly? So I want this form, and this form will be defined in the Zerve CMS, but it'll show up on the Zerve homepage. So if I edit the schema for the form, the actual form on the homepage will change. So the homepage code won't have any specifics about the form. It'll just say, I want this form, this is the name of the form, and this is the server. It'll just refer to a different dev server, basically, and it'll render this form that will then accept, submissions for people subscribing to the Zerve cinematic universe. At your work, you use Drupal, Brace. And yeah, exactly. Drupal does work as like a headless CMS in this world. Like I am very much competing with Drupal directly. Kevin says you can create building blocks inside of CMS and use it all the way in the app. Definitely. I'm hoping to like have a lot of reusable building blocks, so that way, like the dream is for you to be able to kind of ship new types for the database alongside a suite of features surrounding them. So like two really simple examples that every application needs that can be libraries effectively in this ecosystem. Like I don't want to necessarily have to build and maintain every data type and every piece of user interface. So like I need someone to build colors, including the data schema around colors, like what are the different shapes of colors, like one format for HSL, one format for, including opacity, one format for RGB. And then also building the user interface for the colors. And that user interface, if it builds upon these components that I'm working on, that are like codenamed Zen components, then like in theory, your colors components can work on web and mobile. And then anybody in the world, when they want to refer to a color, they're going to be using your library basically and your color picker. And then we need the same thing for dates. So colors and dates are like these reusable things, and they're an example of, much more complicated building blocks that we could kind of build upon for your application. So in your application, the way that you can build your application basically is by defining what your data types are, and then building a little bit of user interface around that. And then, boom, it's shipped. Ideally, like you and your users and your company, like you're already using like Zerve itself or some instance of Zerve, because anybody can run it and self-host it. Like you're already on top of that. So all you have to do is kind of add that data type that you build and add those little snippets of front-end code. And then like all of a sudden you're like kind of adding new features. Like, I want anyone to be able to be a software developer. So I've got like big visions for this, but yeah, anyways, I've been demoing here like what it's like just on the server side, because I think Brace mentioned that you're a server-side dev. And here I'm specifying, and the idea is that it's going to show up here in the user interface. And this is literally a JSON schema. So we can specify it's a type object. So Kevin's asking if you understand it correctly, like you're building your own CMS. Like this is basically my own CMS, Zerve. It's kind of built from scratch, mostly on TypeScript, and of course with React apps. But and it's meant that you can use it as a standalone CMS, like a headless CMS, like a service that you can subscribe to, set up your schema, and then set up your data, and then your non-technical people can come use this Zerve service that I hope to sell to configure your application, which you'll then have an API for. But it's also open source, so you can fork it and run it yourself if you'd like to. So for this schema, it's an object, and I don't know if you're familiar with JSON schema, but it's all very well documented. You can specify the properties, specify additional properties. Is false, which is basically saying like, no, I don't want additional arbitrary keys to come in. And you can specify what required properties you have, which is kind of necessary in order to have like a strictly typed object. So if you're setting the lights, for example, you want to have like the light ID, which might be a number or something. And let's just say like is on or something. This is just an example. I'm not actually building anything with lights. And then both of these are required properties. So now, ideally in our mobile app, you can see that it was disconnected and reconnected because the server was restarting. And there's some code that should like auto refresh when the server reconnects, but that code apparently isn't working. Cool. Yeah, Brace is keeping an eye on the headless frameworks. Definitely, yeah, just keep an eye on it. Right now, it's oh cool. Everyone here has a degree in IT. Nice. Yeah, it's fun to have a technical audience. Yeah, all the glue code is is such a pain. So that's why, like, I'm excited to have something that's fully open source and has kind of minimum dependencies, almost to a fault. Like, you guys are back engineers, so you're gonna know how ridiculous it is that Zerve like doesn't even really have a database. It just is building directly on the file system. So y'all can roast me on that, and we can get into the reasoning behind that. But yeah, so here's this thing. It's saying set lights. The reason the form isn't showing up right now is because earlier in the stream, like we've been hacking on this, and I think I've probably disabled the form here. So okay, so this is Z state node. What about Z action node? So this is the front end implementation for like basically just running an action. And the main thing here is this JSON schema form where you're specifying like just give me an input, and the input needs to be for the request payload. So literally just like render the front end that includes like the light ID and is on. And because this is JSON schema, because this is all JSON schema on the back end here in the demo server, when we're defining like the payload, we can specify all sorts of stuff. So we can specify like a description with the light IDs, like what Hue Light ID to set. Then if we reload this, all of the description and stuff will like show up in the user interface. So now, without having to go and like build a custom form, we can, you know, have a custom form. Also, for example, like the title. I think the title will work, right? If I refresh, does the title... Okay, the title shows up here. And the reason why is because this is like a description of the... Yeah, I might want to revisit this. I'm kind of constrained by JSON schema in the same way that I'm also empowered by it. But so yeah, and then when we hit submit, we're basically going to run this function. So what I'll do first of all, this function, it should be giving me a type error because I'm not returning null. I'm specifying a null schema, but yeah, I don't need to worry too much about that. And we get the action. What? Okay. So we're just going to log the action for now. Let's see why the request fails. It's saying there's like a type error. It seems like maybe I have a bug here in this thing. Maybe I need to actually set the value. Yeah, so what happened was the user interface still had an undefined value, and the user interface didn't like force the, yeah, so that was a front-end error. I need to like kind of have better error states on that form, on JSON schema form. But yeah, now it's gone and logged out the action. So there's absolutely an API for Hue Lights. It's not documented, but it's pretty easy to use. It's like unofficial. Yeah, like this is the best documentation I've found for the Hue Lights API, and I think it might have changed and gotten different or better or something. Like I think they like have some website or something where you can log in and get worse documentation than this from what I tried. But configuration, I think the trick is you run an API request and then you press the button on the Hue bridge, like the little white bridge box, and then you run the API request again, and it gives you a token, and then it's really easy. I think you just embed that token inside of your path when you're, yeah. So this is pretty easy. I'm trying to remember what bridge discovery, one-time application. I was really happy when I realized that you didn't have to go to the servers to make that work. Yeah, so the Hue API, like I would have made that work as an example if that was easy, because a lot of these lights are on Hue. Okay, so now the reason I went to the trouble of making that action is because I wanted to see how it would work on the front end, if at all. Probably not very much, but let's see. It's literally just going to be inside of the root. There should be set lights. Okay, click on set lights. Bad things are happening. Okay. So what's happening here is my code for like keeping track of like the connection is really confused and confusing. I actually can't hear the music right now because my AirPods are dead. So that's kind of a bummer. Let me know if you want me to turn the music off or change the volume or something, because I can't even hear it. But I'm going to continue going for a little while. And I'm going to figure out what's happening on this like connection code, because use saved connection I think is used on the React Native app when referencing like the like the locally stored saved connection, because the connection is persisted and configurable. Oh, it's gone now, probably because it thought that I was listening to it. My audio setup is a little is a little complex, a little confusing. Here we go. So let's get this set lights action to work on the front end. And Znode .532. So it's literally inside of Znode action where we're throwing this issue and we don't have the connection. Now, why do we need the connection? Is for post that action. And why is use? What if I just call this like use connection? Because we're also inside of a context. It's confusing that we pass this connection string through, but it's also a context. It's also part of the context. So like use connection, I think, is a thing, right? And also probably type safety. Oh no, it says that it could be null. So I do want to throw in the case where we actually can't find the connection. That would be bad news because that means we can't talk to the, like we actually don't know who our server is. Okay, and this is a type error that was already here that I need to pass the schema store into here, but I haven't quite figured that out. And the schema store is basically important because JSON schema has the ability to refer to other schemas. You can like have a reference schema. So I need to figure that out. I'm getting so distracted by this squiggly red lines, but really I need to see what's happening with this because look at how beautiful it is. It's working perfectly. Although, yeah, I'm curious now how well it actually does work. Like, is this a number? Am I able to... Okay, so this is a number in the sense that when I type a letter, yeah, slightly buggy. Now look what happens when I'm typing like numbers and letters into my keyboard and it still says nan. Nan, 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 nan. Okay, I'm going to refresh and just type numbers this time. We're going to assume that the Boolean is in the right state. Oh, the console error. Oh, yes. Don't mind the console error. Well, what was funny is earlier on I was in this, like I was in a different mode here, and I didn't even realize that the console error was like present. Okay, so it attempted to fetch. Is this the correct host? Oh, it's blocked by a CORS policy. This is excellent. I know, right? Nan, classic JavaScript. When Nan shows up in your user interface. Honestly, it's because I was pretty lazy. But yeah, the manifest error, that's been here the entire time, I think. The manifest, yeah, I don't even know what's going on this one. This is really like what's going on with Next.js, right? I bet. I'm curious if Next has a reference to this. Talk about distractions. Next.js. This is from 2019, so probably not. Oh, here's somebody being friendly saying, they request manifest without domain cookies. Okay, so do you think my HTML references the manifest? And also we're in dev mode, so everything that we see here is like, I'm not saying that we don't get these errors on prod. I'm saying we get probably different errors and more errors. And maybe, yeah. Cross origin, use credentials. To my link. I see. Let's give that a try. Let's see where, like, I assume that that's somewhere in my code base. This, okay. Cross, oh, and because it's React, it of course wants it to be camel case there. Okay. I like that tip. Let's see if that fixes it. I don't know. Maybe let me just try restarting the server. Not that server. This server. Okay. Let's see if the no, that manifest error is still here. The manifest is for the compiled JS code, if you're not mistaken. Yeah, well, isn't this the manifest.json like for PWA features? Which I don't even know what it says here. For example, this, it's going to be .json, I think. Okay, maybe that's the issue, is that my path code is seizing it. Here, let me try a little test. Oh, you haven't seen the manifest error here? Here it is. Yeah, in the same place. Buried in all the other like errors where this application thinks that it should be performing, oddly enough. This is the href. Yeah, I mean, the other thing I should do is I should just try running this in prod mode and seeing how many of these same issues exist. Also, like the site.web manifest. This is the actual file, so it's literally not it's not a .json. Interesting. Okay, let me just try the dumb thing, which is to rename my catch-all path, rename to something else. Okay, I'll rename you to that. And now maybe when we request the web manifest, it doesn't have to be a .json, but I'm wondering if that is confusing the routing code so that it's basically serving my application instead of serving this like static file that it should be serving. But now it's just giving a 404 here. Site.webmanifest. I don't understand. Like, I'm going to just try changing it to JSON. I know what you're saying is true, that it doesn't have to be a .json in the path. But let me just try changing it to .json, verifying that it loads here. Demo web. Okay, well, you know, it would help if I were in the same application, wouldn't it? Okay, so I don't know why one of my apps has the web manifest and the other doesn't. This is a total facepalm moment, okay? This is what we call a fucking head and hands moment. My guess is that we need to basically just get it running on the right server. Because we're running Zoo Web, which is like the main server now. And there's an old server called Demo Web that does have a web manifest. I'm going to change the name back. Talk about a distraction, but we're going to be one fewer error in our console, and then we're going to be really happy about it. Okay, so I'll create a site.web manifest in the public of this application. Paste in this junk. Coding is nothing but distractions. Yeah, exactly. Like, you start the day trying to do one thing, you wind up doing 100 different other things, and it still wasn't an unproductive day. Okay, I'm just going to literally copy this and then come over here and paste. And oh, here's the, wow, this is really, it's like I have to apologize for not even like syncing my application correctly. Because when I had copied over stuff into this application, I hadn't even addressed the public folder, and the old Vercel logo was still in there. Okay. What about this time? Site.webmanifest exists, and it loads properly. This loads. Probably even has a better... Can we get a favicon? I need the icon to work. And look, the infamous web manifest error is fixed. But also, like, while we're fixing unrelated things, oh look, a favicon copy.ico. Gee, I wonder what happened there. Okay, now give me the good icon. Okay, well, let's see what's in our head. Our head, does our head reference favicon? I guess I have to go make sure I've got the correct meta head matter. Where's the head matter? Oh yeah, that's also a good idea. Also, I have the dev tools open, so I don't think it'll make a difference. Because well, maybe that is the correct looking favicon. You're probably right. Reload the cache. No, actually, I think the metadata is not here. Usually, there's a link tag that like talks about the main icon, right? Favicon, it's referencing all these other ones. Do those ones exist? Okay, they do exist. And also, like, this path is the default path, favicon.iso. Okay, so, okay, good. I just did a shift refresh, and I was doing shift refreshes, like, every once in a while there. Anyways, problem solved, the icon is fixed. Now I need to go and rename this catch-all path buddy, because I had broken you. And now, hopefully, wow, it looks so beautiful. Okay, now what happens when we hit submit? More the CORS error that we had never actually addressed. And progress, poggers, that's right. Exactly. It's all about the little wins. Got the icon working and the manifest fixed. The torrential storm of errors. This one is a big one. This one's an annoying one, but I don't want to worry about that. I want to make these lights, quote unquote, turn on and off. Not actually, but so it's posting, I think, at the correct path, or the correct host and path. So I just literally need to go think about on the demo server, like, or like inside of start Z server, which is like this big ol' file that sort of, yeah, access control. I'm surprised I don't already have access control allow origin star. And kind of unironically too, because I mean there is a whole like session system inside of the API that like is meant to provide the security. So I don't actually feel opposed to CORS just access control allow all. So this would just be, there's like a billion different ways of doing it. I know there's like an express CORS module, but also like it's just a header that I need to respond on certain requests. App.use, so Z handler is going to handle all of them. Okay, I just had to like search the code base just in case like I had anywhere else done this. Okay, it's perfect, including the to-do statement here. This is already in start Z server? No. First, I got all excited that I can just copy this into the application, and now I'm faced with the reality that this should already be working. It's a roller coaster. Okay, I need to go make sure I'm looking at the correct server. Demo server dev. Because, yeah, this is app server. This is start Zed server. So this might be interesting to look into. Cores headers now. Oh, and then there's this method not available. This is great because I know what this is. This is the options request. Check the header response in the network panel to see if the header is used or not. I will, if it comes to that soon. I will look at the thing, but I think probably I have some thing that checks, yeah, wrong method. So I need to handle the head method, basically. The options method, the options method. If I handle the options method, then with probably the existing junk, then this stuff will come through. In fact, like, I'm tempted to even just check for the options method and just return a response right here. That makes, I feel like less confident about that. Right, like, do I care if the options method checks real logic? Like, the options method is literally like a concoction of cores. It's really like cores, a method that cores invented as far as I'm concerned. I'm sure that's not true. Because I'm sure there are use cases of options outside of cores, but really it's only a problem. I'm just going to do the naughty thing. Okay? I'll do the naughty thing and see if that works. And if it works, then I won't come back to it. But I should. I'll put in another to-do statement. Or it's kind of caught by this to-do proper cores policy. But let's see if it works, right? So if the rec.method is equal to, oh, here, let me just also log the method because I'm not sure if it's uppercase or lowercase, but I think it's uppercase. If it's an options, there's also like a head method or something. I think if it's an options method that's used. Next, no, we're not going to call next. We're going to call res.send, and just that's it. I don't know. I feel like that ought to do it. It feels a little silly. Huh? Like, different things are happening now. Look, now it's trying to connect to WebSocket. Oh, maybe, I think the server's crashed. Yeah, that's what's happening. It's lost its connection. So something didn't work. Cannot set headers after they are sent to the client. Yeah, well, oh, okay, well, else. I think I'll just put a return statement here. Because that was pretty obvious what happened there. Is I sent to the client, and then I also continued to let the rest of the application happen. Let me refresh and just hit next. Error failed. What was the error this time? Let's see what the network tab says. Cores error again. I was hoping that it was like a validation error because the validation error would make perfect sense. Oh, geez. I'm in like this network frame mode. Cores plus pre-flight. Cores error. The contents type, really? Does that just mean I need to add another wildcard? The content type is not allowed in the pre-flight response. I wonder if that just means I need to, allow headers. I'll bet there's a bunch of headers. It's probably not even just content type, but like, wait, what if I just put star here? I don't know. But so the pre-flight response. Okay, yeah. So to talk about what CORS does, and like it's super confusing, and I don't like it at all. But the browser like is being instructed by some JavaScript to go make a request to a different host. So it doesn't know if that host wants requests coming from this browser, from this application. So what it does is it sends this pre-flight request, which is a options method HTTP request. So before it goes and sends the post request that I'm asking it to send, it first goes and sends the option request to the destination server and says, is it okay that I'm sending you requests from this origin? Well, actually, it doesn't tell the CORS server what the... Actually, I'm not sure if it specifies the origin, but... Yep, exactly. So that's known as the method, the HTTP method, get, post, or the super obscure ones like options. So that's what I kind of mean when I was talking about how the options method, like it feels like it was invented for this purpose because it never comes up in practice outside of this use case. So access control allow headers are like, what headers are you accepting? And I previously had said X requested with content type, and here I'll also put an authorization, which are like the kind of common headers, but also I could probably put star, and if I have troubles again, star is going to happen. Submit. Okay, wait, this is good, actually, I think. Maybe? Oh yeah, this is the validation error. This is what I was hoping would happen. Okay, good. Good, good. So now, if I put in a number here and send it, what does it say this time? It's a 400 error, which I think means, yeah, should have the property is on. It means that my form is not properly setting the default value. Good, which is really good. It's not that hard to fix. I just need to like jump into this massive form code base to help like, it's actually kind of a workflow problem on the front end with regards to when the form is allowed to make changes. Like, does the form make changes when it's mounted? Like, if the form has a initial value and the initial value is null or undefined, like, and it has a schema and the initial value does not conform to that schema, is the form responsible for fixing that initial value? Can I use Postman to test requests, or would that be more complicated? Is Postman one of these little front-end libraries? Because I use Insomnia, these front-end apps for web HTTP stuff. So yeah, in theory, like I could have tested this out with Insomnia here. Can't connect to the server because I'm not specified on the correct server or something. Okay, good. Yeah, Postman's kind of the same. Cool. Yeah, I do use this kind of while I'm developing the API because it's like the easiest thing to quickly iterate with. Like once I get some sort of error happening on the back end, what I usually do is I come into here and I replicate the error so I can quickly get the error to happen and reproduce that code path. But it's the same thing. So here you can see like what the API is like. And here, let's just try sending an options request just for fucking shits and giggles. No body returned for the response. Like that's the definitive thing for options. It doesn't return anything but the headers, basically. Oh, and here are the goods. But yeah, like that form on the web app is so broken, I can't decide which part to fix. Should I be fixing the validation logic, or should I be fixing the UI so that all these things are not rendered on top of each other? Like you guys tell me what to focus on. It's Electron. Yeah, so it's cross-platform and takes up lots of... All you need to do is buy more RAM for your computer. Sorry. Yeah, I know, it's really sad. I mean, actually, for that reason, I I wanted to use like a plugin to VS Code because VS Code is already a heavy Electron app that I'm running. So like I just want to like have an extension that kind of runs requests, but nothing is quite as good as Insomnia, at least for being like a free thing. Is it M1 ready? What? It's an Electron app. Like Electron apps are all M1 ready, kind of, you know. But yeah, so let's build the form first and then worry about the validation later. No, I don't know what you mean, Kevin. Oh, interesting. I'm not sure actually because like if I were to build an Electron app, I would not want to do the tool chain myself. I would want to use something like I forgot what the word is. Like I totally forgot what the name of this project is. But there's some project that helps you like you've built an Electron application and you now need to go distribute good native binaries for it for every platform. So like I would be depending on something like that because like I wouldn't know how to create like the Windows build, and you know I don't want to bother creating the Linux build for all 0 people who would be using it. Well, I mean I've got an open source audience. Hopefully people would care. Microsoft Teams kind of performance. Yeah, that's painful. But hopefully, I don't know. Hopefully, like it shouldn't be too hard to build a application for M1. But I do see what you're saying now because there's a full stack of technology that's embedded inside of Electron apps. Like it's crazy how it like has Node and Chromium, like quite literally. So let's get to making this UI look a little bit better. Like this is not good. And now I think I should be able to use this new library called Dripsy in this code base. I haven't tried it actually, but I want to switch everything over to Dripsy. I mean, Teams is, you know, heavy, but it can also do a lot of things. It has a lot of kind of embedded native things. But yeah, the Electron app ecosystem is really heavy and a bit frustrating. For a while, I've hoped that React Native would kind of get more mature on the desktop, but it's taken a really long time. Like Microsoft is kind of leading the charge on that, but you know they're not making it work on Linux, and it's just such a big project for you know even a company like Microsoft to do. Ouch. Yeah, and the M1 is the fast. It's supposed to be the fast machines. I mean, they are incredibly fast. So let's see. Dripsy must have a vertical stack. Components. Is there a components place? Am I going to struggle through learning this? API, TypeScript, setup, vstack, stack. Oh boy, I think Dripsy's lower level of a thing that I'm used to using. So like they recommend you using like text into view with SX. And I'm used to using something a little bit higher level that has like building blocks. Whew. Okay, so we quote unquote fixed the cores problem. And on the action execution, we were going to run into other issues because we don't have the user interface ready for when the action completes. So that was going to be a dead end anyways. So don't worry about that one. Okay, this is why in other parts of the code I do this. Okay, that's just to satisfy the type. Yeah, so exactly, like one way that we can get the get to the next level here of getting set lights to work from the web front end is to basically type in the values to each value of the form, so that way it is correctly valid according to the schema on the back end. Because right now I'm able to type in a number, and I can't click the Boolean, I can't click the switch because the UI is totally busted. So here, when I hit submit, we'll see that this request that goes to the back end, the payload includes the number, but it doesn't include the is on. So we've got an invalid request, mostly just because we can't get to that button. But we could also go and rethink the way that the form works, so that way it like enforces a valid value when it is created with an empty value. And in the case where it's created with an invalid value that's not empty, it basically needs to start showing you an error saying like, oh, hi, you can't save this because you need to conform to the schema, and the previous value like didn't even conform to the schema. So it's possible that, yeah, like depending on how the JSON form editor is set up, like you can like have a state that you can't save, basically. So for testing purposes, find the path in light ID and add isLightOn for just to see if it works, or to get past it. I could. I mean, the far easier thing to do is to just remove the light from, or the is on. We can even remove it from the required field. So it's even like, it'll still show up in the form. It just like won't be an error server side when is on is empty. So now we hit submit. Everything works, aka nothing works. So on the back end, we do get the request, no problem. And on the front end, it basically attempts to navigate to the history event that was created. But the history event wasn't actually created because the history code has been basically commented out on the web implementation right now. And then it attempts to navigate to this thing that doesn't exist. And there's not even a screen implemented on the website, basically, that handles that history event. So what happens on the mobile app, let's try it on the mobile app because it'll be a lot more gratifying. We've got a working form. It doesn't look like shit, or it looks less bad. We hit submit. Why would it fail? Let me just refresh and hit submit. Okay, now I'm annoyed. Should have property light ID. Oh, it's the exact same bug actually, where I just need to type in a number. Okay, anyways. Now we hit submit. What it did is it saved locally inside of the local React Native app. It saved that as an event. It said, oh, I remember that I talked to the server this time and I called this action. And then the local store gave back an event ID, and then we navigated to this event screen. And I actually don't know what to do on the web app. Like, does it make sense to have for the client side to remember all of the requests that it made to the server? Like, that seems much less of a no-brainer. Because on the React Native app, I was like, okay, well, I want to be able to remember all of the different things that we called to the server. Like first we set light 12, then we set light 20, 24, and then if you come back to the home screen and you hit local history, these are the two requests. There's, oops, let me see if I can make it big. Okay, I guess I can't make it very big. There's, yeah, one request to light 24. Yeah, remember it if I need it locally. And that's the thing, is like, I guess you don't need it locally. It's just the expectations are kind of different from a from a native app. Yeah, it totally depends on what people expect. And having complete parity here is a little weird. But also, this is like a feature that could be seen as totally optional if you were kind of using this as your own app framework. So that's part of where a lot of this confusion comes from for me, where the like on one hand, I'm working on like a generic app framework that people can use to kind of build like dynamic APIs for themselves, dynamic apps for themselves, like driven from an API, or driven from like no code even. But I'm also trying to work on like the content management system here. Oh yeah, no worries, no worries at all. There's no, I don't need help in particular. It's just more of a design issue. This is the sort of thing that happens like all the time working on a product, especially working on like this kind of generic, you know, astronaut architect, like head in the clouds product, like this. But one thing I can do is I can fix this thing. This is literally a component in my code called vStack. I've struggled with this rendering before. This isn't the first time I've seen all of my components like on top of themselves on web. And you know, I'm wishing I had fixed it last time I saw, but I could not. I tried. So let me just open up vStack or stack. Yeah, so vStack is literally how I like, you know, put a bunch of components on top of themselves. And it's really ugly. Like if you're familiar with React Native, like usually you're not supposed to do inline styles like this, but I've kind of gotten away with it so far. Now the question is, like, that's not causing the bug. The bug is, let me just put a background color here. Background color, salmon. Yes, lovely. Now everything makes sense, doesn't it? Now that there's like pink colors scattered all over this place. I can probably replicate the bug with a much simpler schema, so I'm going to do that. On the demo server, I'll just get rid of isOn. Background color lime. We're going to get all the ugly colors in here. Lime is coming up next. Now, I still don't understand. So, and also part of the issue is that like there's a big stack of components. Big stack. They're deeply nested and they're highly abstracted. Hard to understand. JSON schema object form. And so it's a stack inside of the object form. It's the object who, but that there's also a stack on the outside, right? No? Okay, so like this view is not really doing its job. There's a lot of views in here that are just not doing their jobs. Let's get rid of this so we can see. And let's jump into Z-Action node. I think we're already inside of Z-Action node. Okay. Okay, first thing I'll do is I'm going to remove this stack. Because like I need to use these layout components more sparsely. And as a result, like, probably I'm going to have a bunch of broken padding where all the components like touch the walls. Like that's what's happening to this button component, but that's fine. I want it. I want it this way. And I need to like reevaluate the way that I think about these layout building blocks. Because as much as I want like somebody to have like a system of building blocks for me, like I need to just understand my own system and like understand how any of these things should work. So here, I still have a VStack going on, but maybe I shouldn't have a VStack and figure out like more strategically where to place the layout components. So Z action node, this is effectively the top level because it's rendered directly under Z node. And then the loaded node renders the node directly, I believe. Okay, so salmon. So it's the VStack inside of the JSON schema object form. Well, again, JSON, this VStack should not have any padding horizontal. This is like the new philosophy, is you're going to get separate padding horizontal. Because I've had all these layout issues where the things that are like, you can see the layout issue right here. I was about to like struggle to find an example of what sort of why I need to do this. But it's right here. It's that the inner component oftentimes has mismatched padding with the outer component, where the outer component usually has less padding. So I need to like use the VStack to space things vertically, but not worry about any padding whatsoever. So this is the new strat. The new strat. Margin vertical, padding vertical. Yes. Nothing horizontal. Oh, it's already looking better. Oh man. Yeah, I need some clear both. Oh man. You're talking about float styling? Yeah, float is like what's it called? This position float? Oh man. Clear both. Holy crap. That's a fucking yeah, it's been a long time. Yeah, float styling, fortunately, we've had like the front end community has like had several trends since floats were popular. But yeah, because like there's been Flexbox and now like there's trendier stuff than Flexbox that I'm not using because basically I'm using React Native's styling system. Yeah, it's not like the DevOps stuff is not changing, and it's not like the DevOps side doesn't have their own bullshit. But yeah, absolutely. There's always just incredible complexity and things getting reinvented every few years. Kevin with the float right, float left, right. Yeah, that's just crazy. Um, but yeah, clear both and having to place little elements to just like push the bottom of the container down because the container would be like up above where the float things are, so you need to put these little clearing elements all over the place. Yeah, that's how it used to be back in the good old days. And before that, it was popular, right? Is tables. And you had everything was tables. So tables was some cutting edge stuff back in back in the time. Yep. And iframes are still a thing a little bit. Front page. Yeah, I never used front page. I was used a lot of Dreamweaver. But yeah, I did not use Dreamweaver much as a visual editor. I gave up on that really quickly. Just it was acceptable as a code editor, and it had built-in like FTP features, so things like that. Back when instead of deploying your code into Git, you would just FTP it into the production server. Okay, so here it's creating vstack. It's creating a stack. And yeah, no, the implementation must just be right in front of my eyes, this bug. Because why in the hell are all these things on top of each other, right? This vstack means like, I think each one of these pink things are their own elements. Like if I can add some border to them to make it really clear how many distinct items should be here, we're gonna make it look really color. Border width 5, border color. Now's your time to shine. Lime. All right. Yeah, so, oh yeah, you can even see the description peeking out now. This is just really gross. So something about these child views. Flex 1, border width, yeah, flex 1. What if they didn't say flex 1? What happens? Hey, that looks a lot better. Why were they set to flex 1 if we're inside of a flex direction column? Yeah, like how did this even make sense on React Native? Well, even on the mobile app it looks good. This mobile app is looking sharp, isn't it? Thanks for your color directions. Yes, you gotta love it when there's like a form and it looks just so clean. This is a pretty functional application, if I do say so myself. Lime really pulling its weight here. All these empty sections here are kind of bumming me out. Like, what is going on here, here, here? Shining like a diamond. I think that's got to be right around here. For example, like rendering a null. Do you think this, so vstack, it's doing children.map. Holy shit. This is like such a Reactism, such a React situation that I find kind of annoying. Is now I'm like converting like children to an arrays and arrays to children, and I don't know if you all know React, but this is a little clunky. Oh, here, and it's also behind the camera naturally, so you can't even see what I'm talking about. But like this is being rendered as an empty thing, which is getting its own dummy container. Okay, so I'll try one fix before doing anything drastic. Right, like, because what if element here is null? So I'm just going to say, like, L null? Question mark? If so, don't even render the container. Otherwise, render the container with null inside of it. Okay. Wait, I fixed it. I fixed it. Okay. That's nice. This is almost looking good enough to turn the colors back to normal. maybe we should make it so that this action actually works. Wait, it should work. So let's turn like that Boolean back now that this layout issue has been gotten better. Don't want to say it's fixed, because that's just a way to invite bad things into your house. Is on. Nothing ever stays fixed, so as soon as you say something is fixed, you're really just inviting yourself to be wrong. Okay, look at this like ugly switch component that I think is coming from React Native Web. Anyways, if you don't laugh at this, oh yeah, well I'll watch that. I'm down to check it out. I'm certainly curious. You're lucky that you weren't commenting yesterday, because yesterday I just turned on Nightbot, and anybody who's posted a link got timed out for 600 seconds. So of course there's only like one person in chat, and they posted it. They were trying to share a link with me, and it did not go over so well. But look, okay, now I'm going to punch in this form and hit submit, and from a network perspective, it should succeed, right? Yeah, exactly. It succeeds on the back end, quote unquote, success, and then on the front end, it doesn't do anything or show the response. Well, I don't know. Here, I'm going to turn the colors back off, commit this code. This is pretty good shit. Maybe I can actually do authentication now. Actually, I think the form is working well enough that I can do authentication. The problem is I don't really want to commit because of how like broken I've made the mobile app. But it's so pretty. Don't you just want to commit when it just is so gorgeous? Okay, I'll leave the colors in for just a minute while I go back on this file and make sure that I've put the JSON schema form back here, because earlier in the stream I wasn't sure why the web app wasn't working, and I had to process of elimination on this file, but now this file works well. And JSON schema even works, as long as I don't use a dropover. No guts, no glory. Hit the button. Yeah, exactly. Risky click. Oh. Is it yeah. Hang on. I'll put it on in a second, but I also need to charge my AirPods. So here, I'm going to take a few minutes, and I'll be back with charged AirPods, and we can watch this silly video that you sent me. So be right back. Hey, that's not cool, man. I did not really understand what was going on there. Did not realize that what that meant. For sure. All right. So yeah, back to it for a little bit. I'm gonna get to the stopping point, so then we can watch that video. I'm gonna enable these other JSON schema forms that I disabled on the mobile app because I think they're gonna work now. They'll have a type error that is a correct type error that I have yet to address. Because shit happens. Oh, this is earlier when I was thinking about doing dependency injection and fortunately decided against it. So I got to clean that up. And the UI is not looking as busted as it could be, which is pretty nice. I'd absolutely like to get this front end working. Although we could also switch it to a more advanced server and try seeing if it works with authentication. Just simpleton everything if you know the term. I don't know the term. Are you Dutch? All right, time to clean up the colors. Time to get serious here. Time to get rid of that border width. Okay, it looks bad but not terrible. And here it doesn't look so bad at all. Oh, the singleton. Yeah, so the issue that I was having, the reason why I was like talking about dependency injection earlier in the stream, and I still don't really know what I'm doing with regard to it, but I have this like big file called Znode, and it has all of this logic that basically is looking at the Z API and is deciding what user interface to render based on what the API is kind of saying that it has. And like it has the ability to refer to other things. So basically, like I was trying to break this into several files called Z loaded node as well as other files that I will hopefully break it down into. And what Z loaded node is, it says like, oh, I know the path of this thing, but 700 lines. Yeah, exactly. I've broken it down a little bit further, but it has all of these recursive dependencies inside of it. So literally what's happening now is like Z loaded node is importing Z node from Z node. Makes perfect sense. And then you see that inside of Z node, we're importing Z loaded node from there. And we need it because this Z inline node, this inline node is basically saying like, oh, we're referring to this other thing. So you need to load it in place here, load it inline. And that's used all throughout this file. Like there's like, so for for some reason, like, this isn't causing any troubles. Like, React Native is warning me. Oh. What? Damn it. Well, React Native was warning me that there's a recursive dependency. And this is a totally separate issue, which is feeding into why why I don't want to commit the code, because I've disabled the bottom sheet, I think, because the bottom sheet was causing troubles on web, right? Okay, let's see. Oh, maybe I was just using this as an experiment because there was I was trying to figure out where this was being referred to on the web app. Okay, maybe we'll get away with it. So all of the bottom sheet, yet the recursive call stack. Here it is, the require cycle. Yeah, this is what the warning is. And it's like I directly caused this. And it says like require cycles are allowed, but can result in uninitialized values. So I guess as long as all of this happens in a asynchronously, like in a callback, like through an exported function call, it might not be so bad. Right? I think that makes sense. I think the recursion actually is okay as long as I don't assume. So like, for example, here, if I assume that zloaded node exists, then I'm in for a bad time. If I assume outside in the module scope, but inside of one of these functions, I can probably assume that it has already been required, or that it has been, or that because this function, the only reason it would be null, this thing might be empty, is because this thing is because this whole file is being executed first. But you can kind of assume that it would have also been executed, that the other one would be executed. So anyways, it doesn't seem to be causing a bug. And I think I've exercised the places where bugs would happen. But just for fun, let's go and take a look at the authentication server. Can we use promises? We could. I hope it's not necessary. But most of these functions are already asynchronous. But my hope is that using module scope, like, it should work. But it is a little concerning. And it's like, React Native is also like, yeah, you should be concerned. Like, not alarmed, just concerned. And I'm like, okay, well, that's already where I was. So we've got the demo server here, and this is like at a certain path, right? What's the connection info? 3899. Anyways, I think we can spin up the other server, and we can shut down the demo server. Like, this whole light experiment has been fun, but let's go on to the more fancy stuff. The real server is called Zoo server, and there's also one called Zoo server standalone, which is the version that doesn't have authentication. And this is at 3888. So I'm going to go into the server connections and add the server auth. Auth, AUTH, do not autocorrect server. HTTP, localhost. Okay, and I think it's very important to not have a trailing slash. Otherwise, bad things will happen. Okay, auth server. And here it's loaded, it's open, it's got something called store state, which is basically something we're going to ignore. And then it has auth. And this, it kind of looks like is dynamic, but is not actually dynamic. It's basically because we're logged out, it knows that we need an email and a phone number. And now the front end is having all sorts of errors because we've turned off the demo server. Brilliant. Brilliant. That's okay. We just need to go and change in our hard-coded spot from wherever it says 3899. Yeah, this spot. This is something from a workflow perspective I need to reconsider entirely. But anyways, we're now connected to our authentication server. And if we click on auth, all right, connection unavailable. The name is nothing. Yeah, that's right. And actually, ironically, this is the connection that should become available here when it's complaining about connection unavailable. And this kind of goes back to what I was talking about earlier, how inside of like Znode, in this whole file, this whole Znode file, there's references to this connection, but there's also a connection in context, and the connection in context is the good shit, right? So if I just change this to use connection, and I like don't use that because that's not a thing, is everything fixed now? Wait, yeah, yes. I think that's fixed because now, I mean, we still have a lot of work to make authentication actually work on the browser, because there's like some code that handles authentication on the React Native side. But hey, I mean, okay, what happens if I click email? Hey, okay, I'm excited because this is exactly as ugly as it is on the mobile app. Look, watch. On the mobile side, if I click email, oh my god, it looks just as ugly. So having an ugly UI is one thing, but having the ugly UI on, like, identically ugly on both platforms feels good, man, because yeah, because that means it's going to be so much easier to fix. Like, I'll add some padding and layout stuff here and there, and then I'll be able to have more fun with it. And of course, I was hoping to have fun with it today, but I'll take just getting this stuff to run on web, despite all this stuff that I've like had to turn off on the mobile app. Like, okay, that dropdown still works, but this dropdown doesn't work. Like, it's supposed to have a dropdown. In fact, that's why it's clickable. It's changing colors when I click it. Okay, so what happened? Like, do you think it's able to send me an email? Okay, I'm gonna dox my business email address here. Just eric@zerve.app. It's not secretive. Whoa, it's pretending like it worked. If it worked, I would have an email. Oh, and I do. Check it. Okay, so now I type in 8W PF6W. Now I log in, and this is not going to work. Well, it'll probably work at creating the session on the back end, but it's not going to do anything with it. Yeah, exactly. So the front end just doesn't know how to handle the session. But look, if we look at the response, yeah, the response includes the whole session, the session ID, the session secret, and the ID, and the user ID. Okay. I think this might be an old error, actually, because 3899, isn't that the previous host? Isn't it a different host now? Okay, but yeah, so we got the session ID onto the client, and now we kind of need to figure out from, like, I don't even know what's the best way to save the session on the client. Like, historically, it's cookies. But like the way what the API expects is that when you make a request, you put the right stuff in the authorization header. So, like, as long as the client is able to use the correct authorization headers at the correct place, like, I don't know if we need to store it with cookies. We want to store it with basically whatever we think is going to be the most robust storage. but also in a way that the user can log out. Like, I'm so tempted to use local storage because like I like it's the easiest thing. Local storage is just like the go-to temptation. It's because it's just so fast and simple to use, and it also lines up pretty well with what happens on the React Native side of things. So I might just use local storage and unapologetically use local storage, because it's not like I'm storing very much data. It's not technically an appropriate use of local storage, I think. But I don't know. Yeah, exactly. Here's what I'll do, is I will confidently say that this is the right way to do things. Local storage is the way, and I'm doing it. And then by saying that on the internet, if I'm wrong, somebody will be sure to point out that I'm wrong. Guaranteed. It's just a matter of time. But also, yeah, like I just want to have a cool product and move on. So I think most people don't care, but there's some small percentage of internet tech people who really know the right answer. Oh yeah, thanks. Right, yeah, really send in the heated fanboys of whatever it is, whatever strategy. You know, JWTs. A lot of JWT lovers out there. I'm sure whatever they want me to do, it'll be very complex. If there's one thing that we can guarantee, it's going to be a whole lot of complexity. Okay, I'm logging connection storage. So this is happening on the client side. This is happening on the front end. But this is actually code that was wait a second. I'm like looking at this file and I'm like, something's wrong with this file. Exported function with no implementation. Exported function with no implementation. Functions that are not being used. Yeah, so this file is basically like a stub, like the web stub of the connection storage. And this is the real file that's being used on React Native to kind of keep track of the different connections, the different servers that are added on the client. So, yeah, wait, there's all these like session things here, aren't there? I wonder if these session things are already getting called, like set session. Is it really so easy that I can just jump in here and like write some local storage code to set the session and then to log out? Because also I think, let's see if logout means anything here, because logout is a loaded term. Oh no, here is the full logout. So what it does is it starts by clearing the local secret. So that way, yeah. Oh, by the way, so it is on GitHub. It's just like obscure. Do I have a GitHub command here? Well, that was a disappointment. We're going to try that again in a second when I go on to Nightbot and add the GitHub command. Like I said, I'm still getting used to Nightbot. You're lucky that you're not timed out for posting the link. Okay. So this is the URL. Oh. There we go. Nice, yeah. I haven't really done too many bot things, but bots are really fun. I mean, I just, like, Nightbot was like such an easy integration, but I would love something more open source and powerful. Okay. Also, like, when did I do this? Did I turn on this color on the stream? So yeah, I'm seeing how much of this code I want to try to reuse on web. Probably none of it. Hopefully none of it, but we'll see. Oh man, this is one of my favorite TypeScript errors. Type instantiation is excessively deep and possibly infinite. Oh man, that's a fun one. Okay, so we're using our fork of connections storage. Now here's where set session would be. And we kind of know what it will provide. It'll provide the connection key, which we can ignore. Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, no, I appreciate that, Brace. I didn't realize that you were staying up. But yeah, I'll bet you my AirPods have plenty of power now to connect. All right, let's do it. You want to send me the link one more time? Too funny. Kevin's just sleeping while you're roasting him here on Twitch. All right. I think I've seen this one. Uh-oh. Jeez. Let's see, can you hear it? Yep. Ship it too early. And then all hell breaks loose. Yeah. Yeah. Self-inflicted wound. Too funny. Just the rollback process. Yeah, it's very well practiced. The rollback. It's not gonna help. Oh no. It's just tragic. It's so tragic. Just roll back the code. Oh man. Nobody got a raise for a decade. Oh, that's brutal. Yeah, that's just ridiculous. Performance review. So painful, man. Such a painful world to be in. Oh man. Those everyone who made those decisions, they're deciding how much money you get now, whether or not you get your raise. That was fun. Well, thanks for sending that in. That was definitely nice to have. Oh my god, jeez, ouch. Like I'm just like cringing inside, like imagining having to be in those worlds, having to be at the whim of people who are like kind of preventing you from doing your job. Such pain. Um, but man, it's nice to see little bits of my user interface showing up on here. Um, yeah, I don't know how much more I'm going to be streaming. Probably will be winding down pretty soon. But it's it's fun that at least something is working on the website. Because I've been messing around on the mobile app for a while. It's kind of nice that there's authentication. I just need to make it nice. Well, Brace, thanks so much for coming and hanging out. Hope we can cross paths again. Yeah, exactly. You got to witness some fun progress. And yeah, hopefully you'll stay tuned. Check out the YouTube. Oh, cool. Much appreciated. Yeah, the Discord. Yeah, like the Discord channel is totally dead. I do technically have a Discord channel, but I don't think. Oh yeah, exactly. There's someone showed up yesterday, and from Twitch, and yeah, if you want to hop into there's a Discord channel. If you want to hit me up asynchronously, that'll be fun. And yeah, until next time. Okay, let's get the lo-fi going for a little while longer. Have a good night, man. See you next time, Brace. Where is the tab that was playing lo-fi music? That is my question. Here we go. Okay, how nice would it be if off kind of worked? I think that'd be really cool. Oh, also the lo-fi is blasted. Let's see if we can get the session working. Like, even if we're just like doing a basic saved session here. It's annoying because I have to go through the whole auth process to get to the spot where the session gets saved. But let me just open up the right file, because I think it's going to call set session. So Znode calls set session itself. Yeah, this is what happens when the login works. So yeah, I'm just trying to think how I want to access the local storage here, because there's so many different ways of accessing local storage. One way is through React Native Web directly, right? There is such a thing, I think, in React Native Web. Okay. What about React Native Web itself? Didn't they used to have it? What happens if I just try it? Import async storage from React Native Web. Okay, so TypeScript doesn't like that, but what if I just use React Native directly? Yeah, there's all sorts of complaints about how it's not actually here. That's fine. Because it's here. Set item, session. And then you can do like json.stringify. This is so jank. Set session. Okay. And then at some point we need to like get the session, right? Where is the session used from? So there's like a local storage abstraction here called create native storage. And I think that's the only thing that this file depends on that's like kind of really native-esque. So I could either continue down this route where there's platform forked code for web and native here, and the code is like significantly different, or I could consolidate them by basically like implementing this storage abstraction on web. That's kind of an interesting idea. And we just kind of confirmed via cores that it's okay for one Zerve service to talk to another Zerve backend. So maybe it's okay that you've got like a web app that's like kind of a hub, and it's like it's able to talk to all of your different servers through one UI. Maybe that's a good idea, maybe not. Because nothing here about this is specific. So create native storage, this is what I would need to re-implement. And this is inside of storage. It's inside of this React Native code. Okay. I'm not sure how much of this code is really active. I just found a file called database. That's always fun. A fun discovery in your own project. So this returns basically a native storage module. And it's exported as a type. Okay, okay, okay. Which chunk of work do I want to bite off right now? I cannot decide. Let's just do the super ugly thing. But also, to answer the question from before, connection storage, which contains the session, how does it export the session? Well, I've certainly gone and confused myself. I think what I need to do when I get back from a brain hiatus, which is what I will do, because I am going to wind the stream down. It's been fun. All my viewers are gone except for my one viewer, but yeah, you know who you are. You're the real one. My one remaining viewer. But oh boy, did we make good progress today? Let me just show off a little bit of this fun stuff that we've been working on. Because this web interface previously was totally busted, and now it kind of resembles what's going on the mobile app, right? Like, this is when we're at auth. It has the same buttons as the mobile app, and if we go back to the home screen, it's got the same buttons that we have on the sort of home screen of this server. And yeah, what happens if we click on that? Bad things. I think I know what's going on there, but that's shouldn't be too hard to fix. Let's see if it works here. Yeah, exactly. It's similarly broken on web as it is on native, which is really fun progress to make. And yeah, there's still a bunch more challenges to be made, to sort of be handled, lowering the barriers across web and native, and making it so that this web app really can do everything, making it so that you can log in, and so that you can manage your application's JSON. And hopefully this will be a nice, pretty, and usable application. But gotta focus on that. And thanks for tuning in and being around if you've made it so far in this stream and in this series. You are the real followers, and I appreciate it. Whether or not you contribute or comment or just like and follow along, I'm always happy to have you here. I'm gonna plug my YouTube channel, where there is some good content, the GitHub, in case anyone wants to take a look at the code and dive in. I'm happy to help review your pull requests and work with you on contributing to Zerve. And also, you can tweet at me. I'm thinking about the other things. And yeah, thanks for joining.